You're listening to NFT365, the first daily podcast on NFTs with your host, Fanzo, talking crypto, blockchain, Web3, non-fungible tokens, metaverse, and...
What the is a non-fungible token?
We'll get to that.
What's up, friends? Welcome back to another episode of NFT365. We're not daily this season, but we are definitely changing it up because, we did daily. We checked that box 365 days in a row. I also would not recommend anyone in their right mind to do that ever again. And the beauty of this with our new season is that I get to bring in some new co-hosts. We get to change up some of the structure, some of the really just the flavor of our show, the way that the content goes. But there's one warning that I will kind of put out at the beginning, and this is a lesson that you're just going to have to learn. For all of season one, I attempted really hard to create short episodes in like the 10 to 15 minute range. Anyone that knows, the average episode for all 365 was like 43 to 49 minutes long. So the truth of this is, I'm adding new variables, adding new co-hosts. We are not going to make short episodes. And so that's the beauty of kind of the warning for everyone that's out there, is that we get to have some fun conversations, dive deep. And I'm excited to bring on another new co-host of the show. Many of you are familiar with him, as not only has he been a guest and someone that's been traveling with me around the world to different places for different events, but someone that I value his experience in the space. I also happen to be involved in his project, and he's doing some great things there. But Travie, welcome as officially as co-host, first co-host episode of season number 2, my friend. Excited to have you here.
Thank you. Long time coming, and I absolutely find this to be an honor. As you mentioned, you and I have traveled. We were out in NFT London. I just got back from Art Basel, and we just got word that I'll be presenting over there at NFT NYC. And it's funny because having been a guest before I was a co-host, we had a couple episodes, and one thing that came up in both of our talks was what we're going to talk about today, and that's Flyfish Club. And it's something that I personally find a lot of value in, not just as a holder, but in the future of what NFTs can do and deliver. It's one of the things that really opened my mind to what NFTs can do for the general public, mass adoption one day, and all that kind of stuff. But for right now, it's a really close, friendly community, and I'm really happy and excited that we get to talk with Roddy today.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, Travie, what's funny is before I think you and I were kind of interacting as much as we were, it's funny, in this space, not everyone docks themselves, right? And then I remember you and I kind of going back and forth before Flyfish Club launched, and I was like, you're like, yeah, man, I can just jump into the city. And I was like, oh, okay, hold on. I think I now know where Travie's geographical location, which, I'm in the DC area, right? So like having someone that's like kind of on my East Coast radar is always like a pleasure, right? I feel like I'll find somebody we'll be hanging out talking, and they're in Denver or they're in LA, and I'm like, damn. So like I remember that being part of it. But yeah, I think with that being said, we will welcome in our guest for today's episode. So David, thanks so much for joining us. David with Flyfish Club. Give us a little bit of your background, even the kind of like prior to Flyfish Club, and we'll get into kind of a discussion around Flyfish Club.
Cool. Pumped to be here, guys. Thanks for having me. Hospitality industry for about 20 plus years, entrepreneur, kind of working my whole life. Way before that, always been doing stuff. Started an event planning company when I was super young, worked at the local bowling alley, pizza delivery guy, just always kind of, doing stuff and out there. Went to school for finance, was a business major, and just always kind of came back to social experiences, putting together events, conjugating with large groups of people, owning and operating different types of venues. Started with lounges, nightclubs, and bars in my 20s, and then graduated more towards, restaurants, chef-driven restaurants. I partnered with an incredible chef named Alex Stupak. I co-founded a group with him called Empeon, where we have 5 restaurants open now in Manhattan, a couple under development. I operated that group alongside Alex for about 8.5, 9 years. And then took a pause, wanted to do some stuff on my own. Gary and I have been close for about 10, 12 years. He was also an investor of mine in the early days of Empeon. We've been close friends, spent a lot of time together over COVID. and just felt like there was something to do. We're having a lot of fun with creative conversations, and felt that you marrying up my skill set of operating in hospitality, with his of marketing, tech, branding, felt like there was something interesting to explore there. I was simultaneously having some conversations with Josh Capon, who's a close friend, a celebrated chef in Manhattan, and trying to figure out ways that we can maybe do some stuff together. And ironically, he was also having some conversations with another decorated chef named Connor Hanlon, who is a culinary director for the NoHo Hospitality Group. And through, conversations, being very honest with each other, hearing where we were all coming from, there was a common theme of what we were all looking for. And something that started with just Gary and I blossomed into forming a new group that was called VCR Group, a modern hospitality company. And our first major application or concept was Flyfish Club. In 2021, there was this, rally around these three-letter words called NFTs. Gary came into my home in the beginning of March, kind of flocking his hands all over the place, screaming, NFTs are everything. This is where we have to spend our time. I want you to think of a lot of different ways that we could explore utilizing them in the hospitality industry. So came up with a list of 10 ideas. We got very excited as a group about member-based environments. There was an acceleration of member clubs through COVID because whether it was marketing or reality, it seemed like people wanted to be in more private dynamics rather than just massive public spaces, and felt that was, more trusted or more health conscious. So there was an acceleration of them. And, I frequented member clubs my entire life, just felt the model always was interesting, always worked. And through NFTs, we found a use case of leveraging the technology to authenticate an ownership of people's access to Flyfish Club. You still pay for food and beverage, which is typical in the member game. However, rather than just renting a social experience through the use of NFTs, you actually own your membership. We had this aha moment. We thought it was very creative. We got very excited. We tested it with a handful of trusted, peers and friends in our industry and other industries. And, since that day, didn't look back. Built a team of developers and engineers and designers, built the model, started, really just getting focused on this, and spent the greater part of 2021 developing it, doing a whitelist small mint in December, and then doing the official, public mint in early January. In the greater part of 21, we talk about NFTs like this is lifetimes ago, but last year, everybody was just purely focused on collectibles and NFTs and community and pictures and, the speculative market of investment of what things were worth, founders, trying to find where to put their money for these, quick projects of hopeful quick appreciation. And everyone was running this way, and I was just focused on the other way. I felt like harnessing the community was important, and artwork and all of that was definitely important, but that was 1% of what we were thinking. We were just, at the time, no one was thinking about it. We were purely focused on utility. We were focused on, we're hospitality guys. We know the pain points of our industry. We know what we're good at. We know what we don't do well. And there are just challenges in the overarching industry. How could NFTs bring more value to us, our partners, our community, our clients, our members? And that's what we were focused on. And now, I think that we play some role in the bigger market of where the change is going. I definitely don't believe that we are the reason for it, but I think that we brought some attention to it. And now a lot of people, or most people, whether it's out of, pure thoughts or it's forced, because everything has, or 95% of the projects have failed like Gary said they were going to be, whether it was forced, whether it was, out of inspiration of, projects like Flyfish Club and other projects, whatever it may be, everybody has now shifted this way, and is now the game is bringing value, real value, not, speculative value, to members on the other side of that transaction. So we were always thinking about that. This wasn't a new thought for us. We're going to continue to think about that. I think that we have a leg up on everybody because this is pure to us. We've always been in real life people creating memorable social experiences. This is what we do. We're comfortable with it. Yep. I think we have the best partner in the game, Gary, who teaches and educates us on the things that we don't know. And every time that people think that we're done, or that, we've provided what we've said or then some, we're going to try to come over the top and then do more. So we're very excited to be where we are. We're humble about it. We're grateful for it. And we're going to keep going.
No, yeah, I love that. And Travie, when we mentioned, I teased it there because Travie, you're a holder, and I think I think for many of us in the space, it was a buzz when it was launched, right? And I think the narrative was like kind of the combination of like, what the hell's Gary Vee doing now, right? There's like there's something offline with a restaurant, like that was kind of like the initial like buzz. And for anyone that went to VCon, I was lucky enough to be there at VCon, and there was also a kind of a buzz and conversation around like Gary delivering on that first kind of utility of VFriends, right? And like to me, still holds the bar as the premier NFT event, especially project event. I haven't been to one that has been better than that event as a whole, and I didn't know what to expect because I've thankfully been in the Gary ecosystem for a long while, and he kind of took me under his wing a little bit in 2014 at South by Southwest, and been lucky to kind of follow that journey since that time. But then the element of like, okay, for those that missed VFriends or those that were welcomed into the space with VFriends, there were moving parts. Travie, I'm curious from your take, what was your like aha? How did you start to see it? And then how did you kind of like as you kind of experienced it from your side? Because we have a kind of a unique double take here on the podcast.
Yeah, so I'm a holder, as everybody out there maybe doesn't know, maybe does know. I've been very vocal about how proud I am to have gotten a Flyfish Club token. And going back to January or that winter time when it launched, it sold out in seconds. And it's something to have an advisor. Like I have Fanzo as an advisor for things I'm working on, and Roddy, you have Gary in there with you. And Gary is great. We all love Gary. I also have to say that having heard you and Chef Connor and Chef Capon in some of your discussions, it really it showed me that this was going to be something beyond kind of like that digital token. It really proved to me that you were on the ground working. And I have to say this: you mentioned how Gary talked about 90 some odd % of projects were going to fail, and we're seeing that happen. But something a lot of people might not remember is there were a lot of roadmaps for different NFT projects, right? And many of them were not completed. It could have been something simple, like we're going to donate this money to charity, or it could have been something more like we're going to send everyone a t-shirt, whatever the things were. So many of them were not being met. But what I saw as on the collector side here with Flyfish Club was not only did you have a roadmap in place for holders, but there was more and more added to it. And so you've talked about this surprise and delight conversation before. And everything that's been on the roadmap has not only been met, but there were pop-ups, there were surprises, there were things at NFT NYC that I was able to go to. We just had a party at Tao in Manhattan where I don't want to, Roddy, I know that there's some stuff you probably want to talk about as far as the announcement that happened.
Go, man.
But just from the holder side, I want to say this, because we will get to it once we kind of crack open the nuts and bolts of what Flyfish Club really has to offer. Some of the best friends I've met within the NFT community, I met as a part of Flyfish Club.
And I love that.
Yep. And I'm not just talking about buddies in Discord, because even back to before some of the first events, it might have been right after the very first one where you had the Miami boat party or the Miami yacht party. We were busting on you guys like, hey, we really want hats. Like that was our big thing. I kind of led that charge. And then after a while, like we really got hats, and it was such like, to me, just the most random thing to ask for. Never really thought like Flyfish hats were going to be a big deal. And now everywhere we go in every event, you make sure that there's an array of hats for everybody. And we got the Flyfish Club, Air Force One. So Fanzo, I guess my point is there, and Gary's talked about this as well. When you're getting involved in something like this, something that's so new, not that the restaurant industry or the hospitality industry is new for these guys, but the NFT world in general, you bet on the jockey and not the horse. And we could have been like, cool, Gary's got another project, but with this one, it was great because the chefs and Roddy really helped to kind of lead that charge. So, yeah,
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Absolutely, man. And you're very present at the event. So that's the last thing I want to put too. It's not just kind of a thing where the holders go and, we go to a bar or we have some drinks or something. We get to talk with you. You're very down to earth, and it seems to me that you really appreciate, us showing up.
Listen, we're grateful and appreciate it all. I'll touch on a few things. First, the hats. Everybody made a big deal about these hats, and listen, man, we listen. Like in our industry, you have to really be in tune with the guest, right? Like, and there's a lot of people. It's odd. There's a lot of people in hospitality. Hospitality means to go above and beyond. And there's a lot of people in our industry that really are just providing service. Service really just means kind of like the necessary steps to get people food and beverage and make sure that the obvious components are coming to them. They order, you bring them food, they ask for other things, you bring them to them, they get a check at the end. It's a transactional relationship, right? Hospitality is, how do you create special moments for people that go above and beyond and that they could reflect on? And that's what we do. That's what I've always done, was how do you wow a guest in a night? Like, that was my goal. I used to spend time with my managers, like, how do you wow somebody? Give me 10 ideas how to wow somebody, not just get through the service. Like, do something weird, do something silly, do something crazy. I want to hear, like, and then we could talk about if it's, realistic or not. Is it cost effective? Does this hurt our brand? Does this help? Is this replicatable? Like, we would dive into that, but let's talk about some crazy ideas. So, and Josh is like that, and Connor is like that, and Gary has been hospitable at his core his entire life. So I bring this up because we listen. People wanted hats. We love wearing hats, and we're not going to do everything that our community wants, because we also trust our own gut, because we're operators, and if we just do everything that everybody says, there's going to be no point of view, right? But we thought this was a good idea. There was clearly like this internal joke around it, and we thought, like, let's have some fun with this one. Let's spend $23,000 on hats and place the biggest order that this company has ever seen. You bring up the roadmap. Sure, we could have minted an NFT on the heels of Gary's brand and done probably the same and not even promised a third of it. In hindsight, we probably could have sold out the same project without even the promise of a restaurant. In hindsight, we probably could have done everything we did, brought in the same amount of revenue or close, and probably have just been a collectible with physical events and community and, virtual cooking things and wine tastings. And still it would have been differentiated by the lens of hospitality, but it didn't have to include this, $10 million plus juggernaut that we're building. The roadmap was what allowed us to be very comfortable and confident in putting ourselves out there and showing people that here's our transparent list of what we're going to do. Here is what our promises are. And everybody else's either was much smaller or they were roadmaps. And then as you watched over the weeks, they went away. What we did is we went the other way. We not only executed those things, and they were big things. They were 8 physical events that, the monetary side is one piece And that's not the most important part of it, but each event was $100,000 plus to produce. But the time, the commitment, the resources, the experience, the curation, the menus, the video reels. We then were, hiring videographers around those events and creating amazing collateral and new merchandise, and kept building upon that roadmap. And if you go to it now, it's more built out. There's highlight reels, there's recaps. And then, when people thought it was over, we were like, fuck it. Sorry, I don't know if we could curse here, but
You're good. Yeah, we're Web3. You're good.
we're like, you know what? Like, people think that this is it. Let's do more. We have an idea for another event. Let's go bigger. Let's have more fun. Let's show people what we're about. And that was what gave us the confidence to do something so crazy and launch this membership NFT club. And us knowing that it would be a year, 2 years out, how do we give people the confidence, and how do we show that we're not just trading on Gary's brand? How do we show that we care and we're not just taking this for granted? And it was that. And obviously we could have still, done what everybody else did and went away, or done them at 10%, or pulled events away, or rug pulled. And all I could say is we have our intent, our actions map towards that intent, and we're going to continue to map and or hopefully exceed, our actions versus our intent.
One of the things that I said on the last episode of the show, for those that are listening here, right, was that, one of the biggest problems has been in the NFT space was the lack of an actual business that the NFT was giving either access to or built upon, right? And it's not, in many cases, we can't fault a lot of the NFT projects because they were deemed projects that a whole lot of speculation, a whole lot of they flipped the weird, raising funds model upside down rather than like a Kickstarter or, hey, this is what we've done. We're going to raise money. It's like, this is what we think we could one day do. Give us your money now, right? And we know that that's kind of what the market kind of portrayed. But I will say, the Flyfish Club marketing, I think even after that first announcement, for me, and it went from like a Gary V's doing another thing to, wow, look at how defined, in not only the chef conversation, right, but like the vision. And for me, like I like a weird tie-in is like my very first, I was 14 years old, and it was like one of those things at school, like, what do you want to do when you grow up? And I was like, I want to own a sports bar. And so my dad took me and got me like my first trademark of my name. And so it's the Fanzone. I own Fanzone Sports Bar, where that was my last name being Fanzo. It was like the easy segue in there. And then my family owned a frozen yogurt shop from I was 14 till 20 out in Virginia Beach. And I quickly learned, holy hell, is that business model a lot of work, a lot of like owning any kind of a physical establishment, understanding kind of the ebbs and flows that kind of come into a market. But I think interestingly enough, with Flyfish Club tying it back into NFTs, as you said, like the membership club model, right? The exclusive that wasn't like what was being reinvented. Ultimately, it's using the blockchain to facilitate a lot of the things that were not possible in the membership model of old, but then also doing it in a way that is kind of that over deliver. And I will just say, I'm a huge hospitality guy. I've traveled to 76 countries, and I always tell people, like, I will fly Delta for 3 times more the price because Delta takes care of me. I will drive by 9 other hotels to stay at a Marriott because I mean, it's not a brag. It's actually a shameful thing. I've been to 1,200 nights in a Marriott in my life, right? I mean, more nights in a Marriott than I would ever want anyone to stay in. But I say that because there is something beautiful about the hospitality space. Its desire to understand trust, understand loyalty. And let's face it, NFTs have been sold on trust and loyalty, but the people behind them have never had to be held accountable to deliver on those 2 metrics. And so I think it's a beautiful thing of what you've built. And I will say, when I saw the market turning, I, for one, from the outside was like, this is the opportunity for Flyfish Club to pull back and say, we're not going to do the restaurant. Hey, it was a great idea. We had this vision. We were moving this direction. And I mean, I remember I was sitting with Travie. We were having a drink at the bar, and he's like, dude, I got to go. And I was like, what do you mean you're not hanging with me tonight? And he's like, I got a Flyfish Club. I was like, oh, this is where the exclusive piece comes, right? And it was like, for me, I mean, it was in real life FOMO, but it was also like another recognition of like utility being dropped that is tangible. So I'm curious, David, from your take on, because the NFT does facilitate something unique, but ultimately you're delivering on your bread and butter, pun intended, from the jump, and creating kind of like exclusive experiences. I'm curious, beyond like the NFT being able to be bought and sold and traded and have kind of like a public, front door onto what you've been building, what are some of the other byproducts? I know you mentioned like kind of like the conversation with community members, but what are some of the other byproducts you've been able to kind of leverage thanks to having this NFT as part of this really, unique IRL experience?
Listen, I think what it's provided us, some of the byproducts, is like, you can't disregard the power of the community. I think Travie said it very well. Like, there's something incredible being built here, and it's like we're all in it together. And our holders, I love what we've created at MPayOwn. I'm still a minority, equity holder. And I was at that for 9 years, and something unique is happening here in the span of, a year. And I said this 6 months ago, like, this community, the loyalty, the conversations, the satellite events that they're creating amongst themselves, the traveling that they're doing to be with us or to be with each other in different markets. It's something that I've never seen before. We dropped a merch page because everyone was asking us for merch. Like, we didn't do this as like a revenue stream. We sold out that day, brought in like, I don't know, $100,000 of merchandise, on these incredible sneakers that were very expensive to create and these awesome hoodies. So like, I think the ability to have this community and them essentially becoming brand ambassadors on your behalf, it's like we're this crew, this tribe, and it's really remarkable. It's refreshing. It's exciting. I go to the events. Travie said some really kind things about my presence, and it's the same as Josh and Connor and Gary. Like, we're grateful to be there. We know that we're the creators and all of that, but like, okay, after we remove that piece, like, we're at these events, generally all in a very fortunate place, in New York City or these awesome cities, enjoying incredible food and beverage with creative people, throwing parties, talking about things that are interesting. Like, how could you not be pumped about all of that? And then, we're building something and you're seeing that come to life, and we're having fun while we're doing it. And then there's just momentum. And we leave these things and it makes us want to do more. We're having a lot of fun with it. We're grateful for it all. We're working really hard. We've had a lot of challenges with it. You brought up a word before. A lot of these companies just did this to raise a bunch of money. And for us, it was always thought about differently. Like, we use the word generated. I think a lot of companies are thinking about this, in an improper way. Like, all of this is just revenue. There's revenue, there's expenses. You bring in revenue, and then you use those expenses to build a brand. And hopefully the idea is that, your revenue exceeds your expenses, and there's something left to then continue to invest, to then continue to build that brand and grow. That's the way we're thinking about things. We brought in whatever the amount was, 14 million bucks or whatever, and that was income. Right. And we paid tax on that money, income tax, sales tax. We're going to be the most, I pride ourselves on it. I think we're the most tax forward, tax responsible NFT group in the country. Oh, nice. I believe that, because I talk to a lot of our peers and they're not thinking about taxes. They're looking at it as a way to bypass, doing projects and just make a bunch of money, and that's their profit, or they bypass, raising money a traditional way. And that's not the way we're thinking about things. We've generated money. We're fortunate for the way that we did it. it's a more modern way of thinking about things. We have taxes, we have expenses, we have G&A, we have payroll, we have legal, we have marketing, we have branding, we have engineering. And hopefully we're good enough and strategic enough that, there's money left over to continue to reinvest and continue to do this year after year and build a big business, because that's what our intent is.
Yeah, I'm curious, like one of the things I think I appreciate that, like, transparency on that. And one of the things I think that is underestimated or undervalued, or I think a lot of people are kind of misunderstanding in Web3, is that transition online, offline, right? And I think, one person will say, like, well, how do you scale that? The fact that you guys are there, you're so, in person, you're so connecting with, the likes of, like, those that are holding the passes. And I think usually, like, that, like, narrative of, like, how do you scale that, to me is always a funny way of people, like, trying to, like, break down something that they haven't even taken step one yet. You're trying to, like, figure out how people aren't going to solve step two. But I'm curious for those that, like, are listening, right? Like, even if someone's not trying to do it at the scale you're doing, but they're trying to say, like, I want to provide this community. I want to engage, interact with this community online, provide them value. You've done, events, pop-up events around different location, as well as, in the New York side. What are some of, like, the things that you have to take into account? Because I mean, one of them is location, right? Because people do have to have either the ability to travel in, or they need to be in that general region. And I know for me, one of the things was, I immediately was like, well, hey, at least it's East Coast, right? Like, from my own personal standpoint. But, like,
Yep.
what are some of, like, those, like, lessons that you've learned, David? And then Travie, I'd love to hear your take on, like, how you also take the conversation of Flyfish Club, because with everything it's hyper exclusive, there's also a narrative of, like, must be nice, or I wish I was in, but I'm not. So, like, I'm curious on that point, David, and then I'll kick it to you, Travie. I'm curious your take on
A
that.
lot of questions there to unpack. I'll start with a couple. First, the main, 2022, the roadmap was extremely important because it served as a bridge between our promise and then securing the real estate and building the club. And that was very important for us to, I think, gain trust, and for us to feel comfortable to come out with this, crazy, exciting, ludicrous project. So that was the first part. I bring that up because, we've done so many events this year in all different markets. As we grow, every year is not going to have that abundance of all these large scale events in a lot of different markets. We're going to find the proper cadence to do them, and where to pop up, and what's the most, high touch, high value. But we're going to have other priorities that I have to be honest about, which is going to be running the operation in that market. How do we scale? First and foremost, the idea of scale is a luxury, and the way to scale is to execute and to be very head down, right? It almost sounds counterintuitive, but, like, if we do a very good job today and we execute the first one, we believe that we have an ability to grow this in other like-minded markets. And that is definitely the plan, but it comes with all the hard work today. How do you replicate our efforts of being so present and high touch, I think you asked. Each one of these, you could call them markets, Flyfish, New York, right? That's the first one. Give or take, once we get to the proper system and understanding it and get a little bit better with our processes and the strategy, and know exactly what we're doing and, what we're looking for, we think we could replicate this a little bit faster. So it might not be a 2-year or 2.5-year runway. It might be, give or take, like an 18-month runway, for each city, 18-month, 24-month. And there likely could be some overlap on some of those months of opening one city and signing a lease and doing some of the pre-development work in another city, right? So I would be lying to you if I said that I'm not thinking about the second city right now and putting in some of the legwork right now to bypass some of that time.
Right.
However, I'm also being very thoughtful and realistic about certain things that can be done and certain things that would be overextending to be done right now until we get a little bit more momentum and proof of concept in New York. We don't need this to be a 30, 50 unit, global scale business to have a very big business. If you look at what we've done and you look at the square footage of Flyfish Club and just general, average, sales per foot guidelines, give or take, again, and this is assuming we execute and people continue to have trust in what we're doing, which is a lot of big ifs.
Right.
But I believe that we're going to do that, and I believe that there will be that market because we're going to work really hard to do so. If each project is give or take a 10, 12, 8, $15 million revenue generating NFT, selling of memberships, of people that are excited to join our club in like-minded cities. And each project, give or take 8,000 to 12,000 square feet, each one will be different,
Right.
but they're going to be of certain scale because you need a certain amount of space to create really interesting complementary experiences within the club. We're not just looking for just a restaurant. We always want there to be a restaurant and a robust bar and some cool, exclusive separate dining experience and something that is special for the market that we're in. So to do that, you need space, so give or take 8,000, 10,000, 12,000 feet. And assuming these places are not empty, and that's where that comes down to us being good at what we do and creating a place that people want to be at. And then it also flips the dialogue and flips the responsibility on people like Travie and our members of us being in it together. And if we're creating something that people like and they're also invested and want to be there, they unlock the value of the token by them being at these places.
Right.
And if they don't use the token and they just treat it like a collectible digital thing, the club's not going to be as great as it could be as if people are there. So assume all of these things happen, which are some big assumptions, but I believe are capable and that will do. Each project, the operating business could be an 8, 10, 12, $15 million annual revenue generating business, give or take 1,000 a foot in sales, which is, a rough estimate of places that I've been involved in, sometimes a lot more, sometimes a little bit less, but, average of these types of environments. And you take an NFT, membership model, and you put those together with an overlap of a new one coming online with the operating business of the existing one happening while a new one is now, starting to happen. You have something interesting. And play this out, with a lot of hard work and a lot of, hopeful luck and putting in the work to influence the luck and community, involvement and everybody showing up. And if it works, 6, 7, 8, 9 units, this is well over $100 million business, in a handful of years. So
yeah, I mean, that picture, I love that picture you're painting because I think that's a visual that most aren't thinking.
And it's scale, but it's also us being very present. Right. I believe that we go in each market, we set up shop, we engage, we do exactly what we're doing, put in, train and educate and hire the right people that could create that culture and could help us hold down the fort while we're also now spending some time in other markets. Josh, myself, Connor, and Gary are very complementary to one another. Connor and Josh, from a culinary standpoint, one could be in one market where the other one is holding it down. Gary and I could really leverage each other. We've got also another great, 6 current full-time employees that, are learning our way and that team is going to build. We do this right and we do it thoughtfully and we could build culture and really have a proper team and that could help us spread our wings And I think that we could have a big business while also remaining very present and making sure that we don't lose, the high touch and the specialness of what we're creating.
I love that. I love that. So, I mean,
Pretty crazy too.
no, and I love the. I mean, I think the picture of that is, I think people understanding kind of like not only that growth, but also like this is also like the validation of having the business understanding of what this is growing, right? Like, I mean, I feel like you mentioned like there might be others that are either, copying or emulating or wanting to achieve. Like a lot of them are coming the other direction where they're not going to understand, square footage and revenue model, right? And even understanding scaling different locations. Like that's such a scary thing for me to think people are going to invest in something where the people don't have your experience and your knowledge, right?
You nailed it. And listen, I hope success for all these guys, but like I'm reading about them and I'm talking to some of these people. They've reached out to us, will Flyfish license to them? Half the things you're reading about are people that originally asked if Flyfish would be the operator of the brand that we've respectfully turned down, by the way.
Yep.
Separate to that, these people are coming out with these crazy experiences with these very high value propositions. I hope they deliver, but I'm concerned, like how many people could deliver on here's $100,000 token, a $300,000 token, these wild ideas that, are just that much more emphasis of obligations and expectations that you have to either match or over deliver on. I'm nervous about that. And then how do you over deliver on that? How do you scale that?
Yeah.
How do you, ours was expensive for a lot of people, but I'd argue that I think that it's almost cheaper than a lot of these other member clubs. When you look at everything we're doing, our events, we probably spend, somewhere in the tune of $750 to $1,000 a member at each event, just on the events. I think our members have gotten almost their tokens worth out of the events, let alone the club, let alone the community, let alone the Discord. I'm really worried about some of these $50,000, $100,000, $200,000, $400,000 price points of these experiences. I look at a lot of that as a money grab, and I'm really worried.
Yeah, I have to say this too. You talked a little bit earlier about building trust, and I think that even we talked about the roadmap. There was not one person I spoke to that at any point was like, I bet they're not going to go ahead and build this restaurant. Like, if anything, we got closer and you added more. And I think you saw, like, I think you understood that even from the very first event that you put together, and then added more and added more. Like, there are guys that, we met through the Flyfish Club, like, Dylan, Brian, and Chris, like, we go out and play golf. Yeah.
I love those pictures, by the way.
Absolutely. And thanks for following and all that. But, and that's what it is. Like, we are, as you said, like brand ambassadors for what Flyfish Club really could be. And it's exciting to think about different cities. But we're really right now, like, I know a lot of us fans, you mentioned kind of being on the East Coast and all that. But I think one of the really important things is that, one of the things you also said too is like that must be nice conversation. And I have to say this, like, first of all, anybody can go on, OpenSea and get a token right now. So it's not as if there's none listed. So it's a little different than something like a CryptoPunk, which is really kind of hard to come by. But it's not like I was some celebrity, and had all these millions of dollars and said I want to buy this really expensive JPEG that will hopefully give me membership somewhere. I worked with kids with special needs and behavioral disabilities. And I just wanted to support really good projects because I personally loved what the blockchain can do for a lot of different industries and stuff. And then, just a little bit kind of down my personal rabbit hole, my wife was supposed to see Gary speak at our company retreat. He spoke down in Austin at the real estate convention there. And we had very young babies. I think one was like a few months old. And she couldn't go to that. And that was the end of 2021, and my New Year's resolution was at some point in 2022 I will find a way for you to meet Gary, right? And we were able to do that through the accessibility and utility of the Flyfish Club. But I wouldn't have just personally splurged on the Flyfish Club token if it wasn't for really believing in the people who were running it. Because I knew I could have probably got VCon tickets and try to take her there or something like that. But there was just something a little bit special about what was being built, among the Flyfish Club community. So, Fanzo, the must be nice conversation is really sort of annoying because, I think a lot of people who say that did put a lot of money into the markets.
Right.
And where they were playing JPEG roulette, when Roddy was going the other way and Capon and Hanlon were going the other way, and they were just like, they weren't saying, hey, we need an NFT project, and then going backwards and being like, hey, what utility can I add to this?
Right.
This is what we do, and now we can leverage it using the power of the blockchain.
Nail it. Man. I mean, as much as possible, everything is intentional from the team. We're at this all day, and you said there's nobody that was unhappy or uncomfortable. I appreciate that. My guess is that they're probably about, Discord is a very specific subset, right? It's not, I know tons of our members, a lot of my friends, they're not in the Discord. They're not on social media. They're, very busy doing what they do. And, to them, they joined, for the excitement of a members club in New York when it opens. And also they followed me and then wanted to support me, in my venture, and believe that it will be somewhere fun and interesting to be a part of.
I just want to throw in real quick on that because there's an element, right? So for those that can go back and listen, right? January 7th was your mint date. I did a podcast every day, and anyone can go back. I want you to go back and listen to that episode I did on that day because I made it very clear, like from my view, right? I had invested in buying an NFT every day for a year, so we bought 365 NFTs, and I made it clear that if I hadn't taken on that endeavor, that I would be getting a Flyfish Club that day, and I put that out in the sense of, for me, the trust was really, and no shade, this isn't a shade to Gary, but when I saw Gary was involved, I was like, well, I want to see below the covers, right? I want to see who else is the activation because, I think for a lot of this space, it's like, where does the activation go from there? But then I also think one of the other components of this and the Travie, this is where like the must be nice thing, I think, is just the, it's the evolving of every early adoption culture that exists, right? Because we all made calculated mistakes and calculated decisions, right? Risk versus reward in many cases. And a lot of people were going for 20x return in 7 days. Others were going for what can I invest in that will probably pay off dividends, like you said, already delivered in many cases. But I want to tie that into so January 7th, minted out. I mean, remember, it was like literally within seconds. And I can't remember where I was with like two others. I remember we were watching it on our phone. But there's also the element of there are, right now I'm on OpenSea, there's 1% of them are currently listed, market conditions are market conditions. I don't really care about floor price to floor price. But I'm curious, David, for someone that's listening, if they were to go on and buy a Flyfish Club membership today, take me through like what does that look like from ownership to get access to a Discord? What are some of the break me through that component, because I don't think a lot of people were in it like we were I know the mechanics because of that day. But break us through that little process.
I'll walk you through that, and just to say one last thing on what Travie said before, they're negative people really are vocal, right? And they spread negativity a lot more than some of the positive people. So I want to say that there were about 1 or 2% of the people weren't happy because they're never happy. They're haters. You're not opening. There was stuff in the Discord.
That's good odds, though, right? That's good odds, especially in the hospitality space. If you only have 1 or 2%,
I think that's low, but it happened. And I wrestled with this throughout the year. Of like, hey guys, we're real operators. I'm out with developers 5 days a week. We're at Edo. We're building this. We've got projects in Vegas we're developing. We're building our pipeline right now. And you don't want to see me in this Discord. So, if you are, that means we're not here to pump anything. We're not here to manipulate a floor price. We're here to work. And this is just the ancillary, reality of the project we did is that it's on the blockchain with NFTs and there's an open sea and, all that stuff. But I appreciate, you saying that nobody was negative, but there were a handful. And that was a challenge for me of trying to manage around that and be transparent about what we were dealing with, about supply chain issues with developers and them not being able to, give us a lease because they got delayed, or developers retrading on us, which happened 3 times. I was almost signing 3 different deals in this year, and almost 3 months in, 25 grand legal on each one of these, and then something happened globally, whether it was the financial markets, crypto collapse, the war, whatever it may have been, that just made somebody uncomfortable to proceed with Flyfish Club. And that was something else that I had to deal with. So there was all these challenges. We overcame it. And, it was always just a challenge of like how much to communicate, to this group while I'm operating every day. I want to give them confidence, but I don't want to set the wrong precedent that like, I'm not working for you. I'm working for this business. We're doing what we believe is right. I appreciate what everybody's saying. I want to try to give you comfortability, but let there be no mistake. I'm not here to pump the discord. And I think what's happened by being so authentic and people now really believing, and I think, parlay this into OpenSea, which is on my screen right here. There's 1% that are listed. There's probably 25 tokens that are available, 25, 30, 20. The supply to demand ratio is really healthy. There's a lot less supply than there is demand. More people want this than that are selling them. So I look at that and I compare it just in my own gauge of like, compared to other projects. And I think I know that we're doing a great job and I'm very proud, but I also think it's translated in this Web3 world. That's a very difficult world to please because most projects are well below mint price.
Right.
Most projects are a fraction of mint price. But you can't control the value of Ethereum to USD. Everybody is facing that, upside down correlation. But, the quality of your project and the amount of Ethereum is a benchmark to how people are perceiving and the supply demand dynamic. And our Flyfish token is well above the mint price, and our Flyfish Omakase is 3 to 4x the mint price. I don't know many projects that have that.
Right.
So I look at that and it gets me very excited and proud. How do we, what's the process? People buy a membership, which is, just really the NFT part. Right. The rest, then we take you off chain. You have to then register your token on flyfishclub.com. You fill out a profile, which then allows you to become a member. And there's going to be more. Travie will experience this and all of our members. There's more to come on that. There's, different things that, they're going to have to read and agree to of, the rules of being a member of Flyfish Club. What does that mean to come into this club? Things that are being evolved and are further iterations as we continue to develop. What does the actual club mean? And what are these experiences at the club? What are the standards? What are the rules around it? There has to be this community and how this club functions. So there's going to be more that happens on that. But essentially, we bring you off chain. You become a person. We get to know you. And this way we could go above and beyond and actually treat you like a human being and not a very long number on the blockchain. And we can then deliver, hopefully, exceptional experiences for our members. We know your birthday. We know what you like. We know what you dislike. We know where you live generally, and this will allow us to provide experiences for our members. It'll allow you to make reservations. It'll allow you to come to Flyfish Club and we can authenticate who you are without doing this and connecting, restaurant, CRMs and things that we've relied on for years. With blockchain technology, we're creating proprietary technology that marries the two while also relying on tried and true, platforms and technologies in the restaurant space that we could count on, from, table management softwares to POS platforms to things that we're creating ourselves to, bridge that gap and bring people from blockchain, OpenSea, all of the stuff that, people have now become familiar with, to restaurant, members that, have to be managed and taken care of in a different way.
I love that. I love that path. And Travie, I will say, seeing your photos, right? I think there's like that balance, right? Because like it's inclusive, and it needs to be inclusive but exclusive, right? So you have to like, how do you? And you mentioned like you get the luxury of a lot of the photos, and like seeing the proud dad moment of your little one, and with Gary, and then also even the photos. I think you and I text on a regular basis on being able to interact with people, getting to know a lot of those humans. I think there's that component doesn't isn't portrayed in OpenSea, right? Like even like, I mean, the 1% listed, when I look through that, and and I'm like a geek for the data, right? So I look through each person's wallet that has it listed. I go and look at their activity, because I was just curious this morning we were researching for this, and like it's so interesting to me, because some have more than one, right? Or some have, if you look at their wallet, it's the entire wallet's dumping, right? So they have a lot of things, and I'm so against the cell shading conversation, right? Because people have to make their decisions as they go. But the beauty of this is, like you mentioned, building in public and transparent, it has its wins and its losses, right? Like the fact that, like, and I've said this for a long while, like if a gym membership, two gyms in our local area, both are conveying their memberships via NFTs, we can pretty much decide which gym has a better experience by which has more listed on the blockchain than the other one, like in a very interesting component, which we will move to very soon. But in your case, we're not really comparing it to anything other than random, I say random JPEGs, but like that's not really what that site is. But it's harder to compare some of those experiences. So Travie, I'm curious from your take as a holder, and I know a little bit of this just from you and I back and forth, but share from your perspective. Let's talk about that. Like you mentioned the community and the people, but I got messages about the food and the conversation over the table, probably, if I say, like one of the most recent ones. Talk to me about that experience that you've been able to receive from the actual going there and getting that in real life experience at the at the location.
Well, it's hard to explain honestly, because Roddy, I don't know if I helped to bury this lead, but the location's officially announced, so
Yeah.
we definitely have to talk about that. But what Roddy and the team has been doing, Fanzo, is they've been curating these experiences for us, and they've all been incredibly unique from one another. So whether it was the pop up event during VCon, or like I said earlier, there was the Miami Boat Party, there was an event during the summer at the Hamptons. There was an event during NFT NYC, and the one that we just had at Tao, which is where the announcement for the location came. That was a surprise. Like that wasn't something that I knew was on the roadmap. And then the Amakase experiences as well for those holders. They're very intimate, and that's kind of like a great. They all have an exclusive VIP feel to it, but the food and drinks have always been provided, and that's something too. Like Roddy mentioned, how much it costs per member to throw an event, and that's why like it's very easy to just, well, I don't mean easy financially, but it would be easier to just say, okay, you have a ticket to this event, go and enjoy. But the fact that they're showing up live and in person to cheers with us, and pick from the, whether it's a buffet or the past hors d'oeuvres, or a meal or something like that, and it just goes to show you, like, this is before we're even in the brick and mortar actual location yet. And speaking of location, and people, we talked about people in the community. There have been some announcements lately, I guess through personal accounts, whether it's through Twitters and Instagram. And I don't want to announce everybody, but in Snoop Dogg's Crip Your Enthusiasm video, the Flyfish Club is actually represented there in the video, and kind of like running around the metaverse. So I when we first started, whether it's January, February, March, the community was like, what would we really want to see, like, live and in person, other than of course hats, which is very important to all of us. But it was like, for me, my bucket list items were, I'd love to just dine with Shaq, and I'd love to just hang with Snoop Dogg. And those are two people I know that, through the last, I was like, wait a second, they're both pretty close with Gary and the team. So who knows, maybe that could come into play. But, Fanzo, I think the idea is we've never doubted the food and beverage. We've never doubted the hospitality. I think it was just a matter of how is this going to look once once it does become later into the roadmap. And as I said, like the surprise and delight factor has been off the charts, and that's a
Thanks,
testament to
dude.
Travie and Gary and the team.
Yeah, and I'll confidently say, and we did a great event, in the Hamptons with JG. We did some awesome events at Tao. All the places we've done were very specifically chosen, and food and beverage have been great. Um, I'm probably jaded on this, but I think I'm confident to say that I think the food that we're going to do, we're working with reputable places when we do these events, and we know that they provide a great experience.
Right.
That's not our food, though.
Right.
We work with them, we pick the right items, we, spend time with their chefs, we, Capon and Connor do their thing. But Flyfish Club's going to be our food in our facility with our equipment designed in gorgeous kitchens with a team of people that are going to provide hospitality the way we design. And I think it's going to land much better because it'll be an entire experience that's fully curated by us. So
I think we got a glitch in the matrix.
you guys there?
Oh yeah, you're back. You're good.
Yeah, I think by of the entire experience, being in a Flyfish Club, designing it from start to finish in a gorgeously designed restaurant with a team of people that are grateful for all of our members to be there, with beautiful food designed by Capon and Connor, and then Flyfish Omakase with Masa Ito and Kevin Kim and Capon and Connor, with Gary being in the mix and all of our wonderful community, added in athletes and celebrities and philanthropists and financiers and entrepreneurs and tech moguls. Like, I'm just going to say that we're going to have it all there. I'm pumped about it. And yes, you're probably seeing some names pop up in Discord or athletes show up. And I think there'll be a lot more of that. I think that the club is going to be a great mix of awesome people that want to hang out, want to enjoy great social experiences, and want to have a good time. So we're excited about it.
Love that. Love that. Give us a little taste. So you said the location's announced. Give us a little taste on the location and what that looks like.
We signed a lease at 141 East Houston. The ownership group is East End Capital. Got to know, one of the proprietors, Jonathan Yormack, who's becoming a close friend, really smart guy. He's an operator like us, never too big to jump on a call and deal with all the things that we need to talk through. So we just kind of hit it off from the beginning. Ironically, this was the first place we toured in August of 2021. So bring that full circle. And we looked at this building. It wasn't done. We weren't ready to commit to it. We went on that, long journey of looking at 80 plus venues with our real estate team from Ripco, Richard Skolnick and Lindsay Zegans. And they wanted to kill me because, we kept looking at more spaces for a year and a half. But it was a long process. We started at this place, liked it, but didn't see the finished product. Came back to it a few times, watched it get built. Roger Ferris, an acclaimed architect, designed the building. He also ironically designed John George's place in Bridgehampton, which was, ironic, coincidental that we did an event there. Beautiful building, 9 stories, modern, beautiful, and just an ownership team. It all comes down to the other person on the other side of the table or transaction. We shared similar philosophies. They were excited about our use. They weren't worried about it. They thought what we were doing was very innovative. They liked progressive concepts. And we hit it off, figured out the business terms, and, transparently, it was one of the faster deals. It took a year and many months to get comfortable with the place that we secured, but from business terms and LOI phase where you kind of create the framework of a deal to execution of a lease, it was record time. It was about, inside baseball, it was about 5 to 6 weeks
Wow.
on that piece because we found the right partnership and the right, developer and shared, similar interests, and there were no games. And I understood what was important for him. He understood that what was important for us. And we found that overlap where we could both exist to create a deal that was fair and exciting and aligned everybody's interests, which is the focus that at least I try to do when coming up with with deals, which is something that is fair. No one's too greedy, and you look for long-term relationships that could be there for a long time. And East End Capital was that for us, and it came full circle, which was a beautiful thing. And we got 3 floors, about 11,000 square feet, ground level with an outdoor courtyard, cellar, and then sub-cellar. All floors are beautiful footprints, high ceilings, nothing's compromised. Some are columnless. The ones that have columns are not many. This is, more information than we've shared elsewhere, so you're getting some of the inside scoop. We're engaging the best kitchen designers, some of the best designers, from a, front of house look, touch, and feel standpoint. We're going to engage one of the best, general contractors in Manhattan, developing a team of, best in class trades, that are going to tackle this ambitious project together. Probably going to be about a year of work, design, permitting, construction. Anybody that's built something of this scale understands what this takes.
Yeah.
And we anticipate to be open towards the end of next year, 2023.
Nice.
We're pumped. We're excited. We're nervous. And we're going to treat everything like the same way. Our head down, treat everything as, these are very big decisions, but treat each one as the only thing that's on our plate. A bunch of micro decisions that'll all lead to, the macro, which is the opening of this club next year with a bunch of wonderful people next to us, cheersing, and hopefully, feeling the reward and the excitement and the triumph together with this community that's, been with us, along this journey.
I love it. And congrats. It's exciting. It's exciting to, all those things coming together. I appreciate some of that, alpha, some things that you dropped ahead of time. Travie, I'll give you kind of anything, the last thing you want to throw in there. I know we've held you guys for, a little over an hour now, but I love this discussion. So Travie, I'll throw it over to you.
I just think it's funny because a lot of things are made about the markets in general. A lot of things are made about, crypto in general, but the things I'm most bullish on are the things that, I was bullish on before I ever heard of NFTs. It's just the companies that are leveraging the blockchain and NFTs to do something to bring it to the next level. That's what makes me excited. That's what I'm excited about with Flyfish Club. I've been excited, since the first episode you and I had back in June where I was talking about it. And there's another level to this. I don't even think of this as the game. There's an NFT game people are playing. There's a flipping and trading game people are playing. But this is one that most people I talk to are diamond handing. We can't wait for the opening, and I hope you have high ceilings there because Snoop is a pretty tall guy.
For sure, everything you said, I completely agree. I appreciate we've got very high ceilings for hopefully the likes of Snoop and other, tall people. And yeah, guys, appreciate you guys having me. I really enjoyed it. I love the dynamic with Travie because he could call bullshit on anything that I'm saying that's not accurate. We're going to keep doing what we're doing. So appreciate everybody's vote of confidence, but we're going to put in the work. We're going to deliver. We're going to have fun along the way. Have some great food and beverage along the way with everybody that's a part of this. And yeah, go to the next step.
I love it. I love it. And so for our listeners, one of the things I always like to kind of wrap everyone's head around this as we kind of pull this episode together is that we also have to recognize that, in this space as early adopters, there's going to be haters, there's going to be naysayers. And let's face it, there's a lot of people that aren't making it easy for any of us to help others be believers. But if you listen to this episode and you understand what what is being built, how the desire to over deliver, the fact that you're bringing in experts teamed up with multiple different ways. This is a use case and an example that at your Christmas table, at your Hanukkah table, that you can talk about NFTs and not have to blink an eye, not have to convince someone that a picture of a monkey is worth multiples millions of dollars because you get other pictures of monkeys and dogs and something in the metaverse, right? This is a use case and an example that provides a tangible, something for someone to go, oh, that NFT. And like the beauty of it is I don't have to go harass some holder and say, let me buy your membership up for you that you're no longer using. I can literally go on, buy it on the blockchain. And David just walked us through that process. To me, that's the beauty of having a conversation like this, is that for all of us, I believe anyone that listened to this episode, you now are more prepared to help facilitate the beauty of what NFTs deliver for all of us. So, David, thanks so much for joining us. This was a lot of fun.
Appreciate you guys having me. Thank you. I look forward to talking to you guys again soon. Travie, look forward to seeing you soon. 2 beautiful babies right there behind you. I love seeing that. And yeah, Brian, thanks for having me, man. A fan of what you do. Love the daily purchase of the NFT. I think that's awesome. And yeah, looking forward to hanging out with you guys soon.
Yep, sounds good. Thanks, everybody. Have a great day. Until tomorrow, cheers.